So revenue can grow while your organization becomes less efficient. So revenue per employee tells you whether your team structure is producing leverage or just adding overhead. So if this number drifts down over time, your organization is getting heavier, not stronger. And so what I want to show here is how to calculate these things and how to create this chart with a little band, a little target line to where, if the columns are above it, then your revenue is per employee is greater than your benchmark. And so we have a data set. Let me just move myself out of the way here. We have a data set here. And if you want this data set with my completed solution, there's a link to download it, or you can just shoot me an email. Okay, so what we have here is we have total employee, the total payroll cost. And that's going to be the gross plus FICA, plus unemployment, plus workers' comp, plus any benefits for the employee. And then we need to, so we have this calculated, which is just the sum of these numbers here. And for gross pay, you should have that like in your data set. But if you don't, then it's just, it's going to be hours times hourly rate plus overtime times hourly rate times, 1.5. If they took any PTO or holiday or have commissions, you just, factor all that in to get this number and then add in, all the fully burdened, right? The fully loaded labor costs is what they would call it. And then from here, we need to it's just equal sum. I'll show you how to redo it, but it's literally just equal sum and highlight, that range. And so this matches this. And then for EO month, we're going to do it off of the end of the period. Not the pay date, but the end of the period, even though they should be very similar. And so equals EO month to get the end of the month. And the reason we're doing it this way is because we're going to roll everything up by the month. And so you need to do comma 0. And now you have the month. It doesn't look like it, but it's there, I promise. Just got to format it as a date. So yeah, so this here equals this here. So I just wanted to show you, so I'm going to delete this now. And then what we have here is we need to get the revenue, and the revenue is coming off of this data here. But what you'll notice is it's all the same for the end of the month. So we can't sum this. We have to just do, you can't really do a VLOOKUP, but you can do an index match or you could do an XLOOKUP. So here we're doing index and match. So just to show you, I'll do an XLOOKUP. But the first thing we need is we need a unique list of all of the months here. So we, off that new column, equals unique, and make sure you're using the table. And you can see, you see how the X is green? Don't do that. Do it right here. Not here, but here. And then you got that. Just got to format this real quick as a date. And so we're good. And then from here, we want revenue. Let me zoom in a little bit. We want revenue, payroll, and then percent total or whatever I called it here, revenue per employee. And then a target. I'll just copy and paste that. Save 2 seconds. Okay, so from here to get the revenue, because it's the same number for every, January 31st, we want to do an XLOOKUP. So look up this value and then return this value. And even if there's multiple, what it'll do is it'll start from the top. So essentially it'll give me this number. You could also start from the bottom with XLOOKUP. It's a pretty powerful function. If you've never used it, then in the beginning of the book, I go over it in depth. But if you're just coming here to watch the videos, then there will be some videos. I'm not sure if they're posted yet, but on the XLOOKUP. But it's essentially VLOOKUP on steroids. Okay, so XLOOKUP, you can see here the first argument is lookup value, which is the month we're trying to look up, comma, and then the array. So where are these months? And they're going to be right here. Right? And then comma, and then the return array. And that's the value we want to get. And so that's going to be the revenue month here. Oh, yeah, again, make sure to do the table. And then comma, and the next argument is if not found. So you could put a 0, you could put, not found, whatever you want, but you don't have to put anything. And we're not going to put anything because there's always an answer. There's always a value. And then here, remember how I said, no, not here. Here we want an exact match. The next argument, first to last. So top to bottom or last to first, bottom to top. In this scenario, neither one's going to matter because it's the same answer. And then you can just close your bracket and you have the number here. And then you can double click that down. So the next one, to get the number of employees, is actually a little bit tricky. It's not like a count to the number of employees. You need to use a new function called the filter function. And what we're going to do is we're going to filter out any employee. Let's see, what are we doing here? Employee name. Any employee name that got paid in this month, right? So equals filter. So we want to filter, we can just filter the employee name, comma, where the EOMONTH, and this is a little bit tricky, you need to do equals, and then you can go back here. You could type in B3, or you could go back here and it's cell B3, right? And so the first thing right off the bat, what you might notice is that there's duplicates because there's 26 pay periods in a year on this data set. I recreated the data set from, the tons of data I've seen from HVAC guys from my clients, but you would have, you would be paid multiple times a month. And so from here, we need a unique list because we don't want Jason Mitchell here twice. So from here, you do unique. And then now you have a unique. From here, we don't want the whole list. We want a count, right? And you can see here that the count is 24 down here at the bottom. So now we just count A. So count A, and then now you have 24. So you can see it's for this month. You can sort of see it behind. And then here, 25. Right? So good to go there. And then now what we need is the revenue per employee. So it's just equals this divided by this, right? Really straightforward and easy to do. And then for the target, I'm going to hold off on the target just to show you one way to do it. But of course you could do it however you want. So the overall, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it for 2026. I'm not going to do overall of this. I'm going to do overall of this, because if not, then it's going to be hard. If you did overall of this and wanted a count of employees, you could take an average of everything. But once you get down to revenue per employee, you'd have to divide that by 2, right? Because let me just show you, equals the sum of this equals the average of this equals this divided by this, right? You're not getting a good number. I mean, again, that's overall by year, but even if you divide this by 12 to get months, you're still double everything else. You'd have to divide it again, and even that math isn't correct. So what we want to do is let's just sum 2026. And then there's a lot of ways to do this. If you probably don't deal with inventory, if you're watching HR videos, but with inventory, you take ending inventory plus beginning inventory divided by 2. So you can do the same here. You could just take equals, this plus this divided by 2, which is 30.5, or you could take the average of every month. In this data set, it's the same answer, but you can do that either way. And then now what you have is you have this divided by this, and this is an annual number, right? So now what you might want your target to be equals this divided by 12. And so now you have sort of a monthly number. Oh, and what we can do here equals this. And then you have the full amount here. And here we did it a little bit differently. What I did is I just typed in a number here, and then I did divide by 12 this way. So what you could do is we could just type in, a benchmark, an annual benchmark. And then from here, you could just do, equals this divided by 12, and then everything changes. So you can have this as a changing cell, and then you could just type in, how much you want to make per year, per employee. This is also per employee. It's not per tech. That's another KPI, which I'll be doing. Okay, so the next thing is to create this chart. So pretty straightforward, once we have the data, and I get it, the hardest part of any of this stuff is just getting the data, right, in a good structured format. But once you get it that way, this part, doesn't take that much time. And so what we want to do is we want to create this chart, which is just revenue per employee and a target based off of month. And so what I'm going to do is highlight the month, hold down control, and highlight these two here. Revenue per employee plus the target. Go to insert, and then recommended charts. And we don't want this. We want the columns. I mean, again, you can do whatever you think is best, but for most visualizations, it's, things like this don't really make much sense. I mean, they do, but they don't. Like, it's not so easy to differentiate it. But if you go to all charts, combo, this makes more sense. Am I above or below that orange line? Right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And so click OK. Let me zoom out just a little bit. And then what we can do is, if you want, let me just change the title real quick. Revenue per employee. I'll just copy this. Save 2 seconds. Okay, so then if you want the values here, then you can click in the chart, click on the crosshair, and then data labels, but it's too noisy, right? So it's just too much going on. If you want just the values for the columns, for the revenue per employee, then click on the column, and you can see at the top, there's the little circles. And now you can do data labels, and it's still, I mean, it really just depends on what you want. It's still a little bit noisy. You could always go in and move things around a little bit. And if you find it a little bit hard to read, you can click again on the number, make sure that you can see all the boxes, and then you can choose a background, right? Something that might make it a little bit easier to see. You can make it bold, but then you get some things sort of in the way, and you got to do just a little bit. But the benefit is you do it once, and it's good. And then finally, the last thing is, for this orange line, I want to make it thinner and a different color. It's just taking up too much real estate. We just want to see it. And so if you double click on it, click the paint bucket, then you can choose maybe like a black line. Well, a black line, and then you can make it a little bit thinner, maybe 1 and at 1 point. And then here you can just do like a dot or something. It's like, I don't know why. It's like I make it dotted like that. Just something to where you can just easily see it. Are you above? Are you below? And you can change the colors to whatever you want. But anyways, so yeah, so that's how you calculated revenue per employee. As always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. questions@databoards. If you want this whole data set with the completed solution, all that stuff, just shoot me an email. There's also a link to download it. And also, if you need some help, getting your data structured in a proper format to be able to get these KPIs, then shoot me an email, or there's a link to my calendar. But anyways, that's it for this one, and I'll see you in future videos.